I've got someone next to me who I've been I don't want to
drag it.
Anyways, let's go into it. I'm back again. It's your boy MrCV. I'm back with another one, and I'm back with something very, very special. This person that I have next to me has really inspired me in a way that it's on a different level that even I can't explain, and I'm sure she would 100% inspire you as well, because what she's done needs to be celebrated. Let's start with obviously introducing yourself, because I think that's quite important before we get into the core context of what we're talking about today.
My name's Joyce Osei, and I'm a wife, a mum of two. I'm a business analyst, and my background is in business development and diversity and inclusion. And outside of work, I'm also a speaker and an author.
So many titles.
So many titles.
I don't even have many titles.
The CV, that's a good title.
Okay. Let's hit the nail on the head. I just did something which was really amazing, which I found quite inspirational actually. When we do pick up books and read books, what the children see are just children of, let's say, of white descendants. And what she's done is she's taken that to another level, in the sense that we needed also children that are from different backgrounds. We also needed a representation of that, and I've got the book right next to me. You should definitely check this book out. And this book included a lot of characters such as myself, as in black characters as well, that children from my kind of background could also relate to. But explain further into the book, because I think people need to understand why this book is special.
Yeah, sure. So the book is actually called The Adventures of Amma and Kwesi in Barbados. And it really came about when I was on maternity leave 9 years ago now, and I was pregnant with my second child. And I noticed during that summer, I used to read lots of stories to my daughter. She was only 3 at the time. But after a while, I realised that actually none of the characters in the stories looked like her. And so as a result, I just thought, you know what, it'd be really good if somebody could write a book with more black characters. But what I didn't know at the time was that person was going to be me, because I wasn't an author. You know, I was on maternity leave, and that was that. And it wasn't until, you know, fast forward 3 years, I started working in diversity and inclusion. And I came across some research which talked about some of the things that impact a woman's career. And one of the things that stood out for me was around the lack of role models. So if a woman worked in an organisation and didn't see anyone in a senior position that looked like her, she wouldn't necessarily think it's possible. And so it was in that moment when I came across that research, I was able to join the dots with that question I had 3 years earlier, which was, how comes none of the characters look like my daughter?
You always mention a quote that always sticks in my head, and you say, you can't be who you can't see.
Exactly.
So if we're going by that quote, how important in terms of the representation of not just black characters, but in this case we've got black characters, but representation of different people in books?
I'd say representation is massive, and it's hugely important, because it has such an impact on your self-esteem and also your confidence. And I think, you know, even if we look at the sad recent passing of Chadwick Boseman and the character he played in Wakanda, just people having a black superhero gave people hope and made, you know, kids think, well, I can be like that. And that's why it's really important to have representation in children's stories, especially in everything, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in adult stories. But, you know, I'm a children's author, so I think it's really, really important to be able to provide children with access to role models, so people that look like them or characters that look like them. But equally, if, you know, you're not black, it's good to be able to have access to characters that are different to you, so you can learn about different cultures and different countries.
And you mentioned about Chadwick Boseman there. It actually made me think about some Netflix series that I used to watch, Black Lightning.
Right.
So and that's kind of got like black superheroes there as well. When you were saying about being an author, a lot of people, in terms of creativity, creativity has been pushed to the sideline. So I'm going to pose a question for you, which is a question that it might trigger you a bit. In terms of the creativity, can creativity be taught, or can you learn to be creative?
I think that's a really good question. Can you learn to be creative?
Or is it something inside you?
I genuinely think that everybody has an element of creativity, but it depends on the environment in which you're operating in, because sometimes that creativity could be stifled or suppressed because you're in an environment where everybody must either act the same or behave the same, so you don't have the space to actually get to know who you are and what some of your natural talents are, because you're being forced to be the same as everybody else. And if you do let out something that's slightly different, that then gets suppressed, and it's kind of like that's not the norm. So I think everybody has creativity within them, but they need to be in the right environment to be able to unleash it or tap into that. That's a great question, by the way.
You should have faith in me. There's a reason why I asked about the creativity, because to write a book, there needs to be an element of creativity. So if children don't have that creativity, or that creativity is born in them, is there things that can be done to be able to bring out that element of creativity?
You've got me there.
Yeah, of course.
When we look at creativity, a good place to start is looking at what's missing. So if you're not actively looking at actually what's missing here, then I think you're going to find that challenging. So basically, in terms of my story, I identified something was missing, but I wasn't aware that I'd identified that until years later. So, you know, one of my recommendations is to be aware and be in the moment and be looking at what's missing, because only by seeing what's missing can you think, well, what can I create? Do you get what I mean? So if something is missing, that's when the creativity starts.
I've never met any black author. What was the process like in becoming an author?
It took me 8 years from the time I asked myself the question, why don't any of the characters look like my daughter, to actually having the book published. It took me 8 years because there was lots of resistance in between that period. I talked about, you know, not seeing myself as an author. That was in itself an obstacle. And so it wasn't until I actually took ownership of that idea and said, right, this is something I'm going to move forward and I'm going to make it happen. It wasn't until 2016 that I started the process of writing the book, and I had the support of my husband. I started doing some Google searches on literally how do you write a book, because I've not written one before. I started researching it. I had an idea about the plot, my characters, where I'm going to set it, and then I thought, well, how do I get in contact with other people that have written books? So I found my local writers circle, and I decided to go along to that and see what that was about. And when I went to that session, because they meet up every month, I got to meet people that have had articles in magazines published, but also books published as well. So then I got talking to them and got an understanding of how certain things work. And then I met someone that had a book published, and she introduced me to a publisher. And so that's how it all happened.
For someone that wants to write a book, where should they start from? I
would say start with what you have. Start with your experiences and just reflect on things that have happened in your life that have had an impact. And like I said earlier, looking at what's missing for you, and can you use your experiences to create something which will fit into that piece that's missing. I'd also recommend people check out Book Brilliance Publishing. I'm also a diversity and inclusion ambassador at Book Brilliance Publishing, and we have monthly events called Awaken Your Voice. You might be interested in writing a book, but you don't know where to start. So come along to that, get some ideas, have a conversation with the managing director there, Brenda Dempsey, and you know, we can take it from there.
A lot of people of our colour,
yeah,
or of the same ethnicity or background, they might think, oh, we will never have the opportunity to write that book or write a book. What could we start doing to start changing their mindset about, or their attitude towards writing a book, so that their creativity and their ideas and won't just die in their minds and in their head, but can also be put out there for people to enjoy?
You start with yourself. You know, at the end of the day, it took me a while to take ownership of my idea, but when I did, I just, you know, was in flow and was on purpose. And in the end, it got published in February. Right now, the publishing world needs more diverse stories. And the more diverse stories that we read and share, the better understanding we should have of people that are different to us.
Coming to like the final few questions, in terms of the writing of the book, how long does it actually take to write a book?
Great question. I'm
thinking of writing one as well, but I don't want it to take too long.
Well, it's not going to take you 4 years, that's for sure. I think with some discipline, and obviously once you have an idea, I can't give you exact numbers, but I can tell you that the process of having an idea and having some support, that could take 120 days. So just 4 months, if you're really disciplined and, you know, focused. I've started working on my second book during lockdown. So I've been really focused this time round, because I know the first one might have taken me 8 years. I know definitely the second one is not going to be taking me years.
Any final words that you like to say?
I believe everybody has at least 2 books inside of them.
Wow.
And really and truly think about what's missing. Create something that will have an impact on somebody's life. Just share a story, because you'll never know how impactful it can be until you actually verbalise your story. And thank you so much for the opportunity as well, for the interview. I really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to connect with me, I've got a Facebook group and I'm also on Twitter. It's Joyce Ossé 17 on Twitter, and Facebook, Joyce Ossé.
I've been very, very inspired by what she's done, and I think a lot of you would be inspired as well. Since growing up, I've not seen any book which resonates to me, and then to finally have a book that resonates to me, not just to me as well, to a wide variety of people. We live in a multicultural society, and
absolutely.
for us not to have a book that we can resonate to is a shame on our aspect, but the fact is, someone has taken that step to be able to create that platform, to be able to create the book, and I think this is something that we all should really appreciate, and this also should open more opportunities for other people as well to get involved, because I'm sure we have a lot of creative people, might even go beyond your level of creativity.
Absolutely.
But if you're not sure, you believe that the opportunity are not there, you can always come and contact her, or you can also look at Book Brilliance Publishing, and that would definitely open your mind and give you more opportunities.
How will you feel if you see a black character in a book, in your storybook?
I will love it.
My name is Heidi K, the TV girl. I want to talk about how to feel if a kid's storybook has a black character. To be honest, I find it very fascinating.
All the books, or majority of the books that I read growing up, they were mainly white characters. There would maybe be 1 or 2 minority characters.
Seeing a black character in a book can make them know their heritage more.
We want to be able to see ourselves in these stories and books that we're reading.
Obviously, it's your boy MrCV. I'm done for today. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. CV.
Subscribe, like. That's enough